My mother abandoned me, injured in the hospital to go on vacation with my stepdad. But when my father called child services and I told the truth about the abuse, she lost everything, and I finally found a real home. I'm 15 years old, well, almost 16 now, and I need to tell this story because I literally feel like if I don't get it out of my system, I'm going to explode. What happened a few months ago with my mom and my stepdad basically made me realize that not all parents deserve that title, and that sometimes the family you choose is better than the one you're stuck with. I guess I should start at the beginning, when my parents got divorced like 3 years ago, because that's where everything started going to hell. Although I didn't know it at the time. My parents got divorced when I was 12, almost 13, and honestly, it wasn't a surprise to anyone. They'd been fighting about everything for years, like everything, from how to make coffee to important decisions about my life and education. It was exhausting living in that house, honestly, because you never knew when the next bomb was going to explode. My dad moved to another city for work, like 3 hours away, and I stayed with my mom because, I don't know, I guess it made sense at the time. She had the house, and I didn't want to change schools in the middle of the year. My dad came to see me every other weekend, and we talked on the phone almost every day, so I thought it would be okay, that we could make it work. The first few months after the divorce were weird but not terrible. You know what I mean? My mom was trying to reinvent herself or something. She started this thing of being a beauty influencer on Instagram and YouTube. Spent hours filming herself, applying makeup, and talking about skincare products that probably cost more than my allowance for a whole year. I supported her. Seriously. I thought it was cool that she was finding something she liked. But I also started noticing she was getting more and more obsessed with her appearance and what people thought of her online. Like, we could be having dinner, and she'd interrupt everything to take the perfect picture of her plate. Or she'd ask me to film her, doing some exercise routine for her stories. It was kind of annoying, but whatever. She was my mom and I loved her, so I put up with it. Then she met Derek. God, I don't even know where to start with Derek. She met him at some networking event or something. He worked in corporate sales and apparently made pretty good money. They started dating, and literally in less than a year they were engaged. 1 year. Can you believe it? I was 13 when they met and 14 when they got married. And honestly, everything happened so fast that I didn't even have time to process that my mom was getting married again. My dad wasn't happy about the situation, obviously, but he couldn't do much about it either, and I basically had to accept it, whether I wanted to or not. Derek had 2 sons from a previous marriage, 1 7-year-old twins who lived with us full-time because their mom, I don't know, apparently had problems with alcohol or something and couldn't take care of them. From day one, those 2 were a nightmare to me. They bullied me constantly. Like they'd hide my stuff, tell me I was ugly, that my mom only married their dad for money, that I was a burden to everyone. And the worst part is that Derek never said anything to them. If I complained to my mom, she'd tell me I was exaggerating, that they were just sibling jokes, that I had to learn to live with them because now we were a family. But the thing with Derek was that from the beginning he was super controlling with me. He criticized everything. My clothes, my hair, the way I talked, my friends, my grades in school even though they were good. Literally everything. He'd say things like I should fix myself up more, that I looked sloppy, that if I wanted my mom to feel proud of me, I should try harder with my appearance. Can you believe it? I was 14 years old and this guy was making me feel like I wasn't enough because I didn't look like a magazine model. My mom never defended me. In fact, sometimes she even agreed with him, told me Derek only wanted what was best for me, that I should listen to him because he knew about these things. The dynamic in the house was horrible. Derek's sons could do whatever they wanted, come home late, not do homework, be rude to everyone, and nothing ever happened. But if I was 10 minutes late from school because I missed the bus, Derek would punish me by taking away my phone for a week. If I left a dish in the sink, it was a half-hour sermon about responsibility and respect. If I got a B on a test, it was because I wasn't trying hard enough and needed to study more instead of wasting time with my friends. It was exhausting living like that. Constantly feeling like I was walking on eggshells, trying not to do anything that could upset Derek or make my mom take his side, which she always did. My dad noticed something wasn't right. Every time we talked on the phone, I tried to sound normal, but he knew me too well. He'd ask me if I was okay, if Derek and his sons treated me well, if my mom spent time with me. I lied to him, told him everything was perfect, because I was afraid that if I told him the truth, it would cause more problems. He'd fight with my mom and she'd be mad at me. Looking back, I should have told him everything from the beginning, but I was 14 years old, and I was confused and scared and didn't know what to do. Things gradually got worse. My mom spent less time with me because she was busy with her influencer career and with Derek. On weekends, when I didn't go to my dad's, she and Derek would go out alone or with their friends, and I'd stay home with the demon twins who took advantage to make my life impossible. Once they threw my science project in the trash 2 days before it was due, and when I told my mom, she said it was probably an accident. Not to be dramatic. I had to redo the whole thing in a day and a half and barely slept. Then came this summer. Derek got a promotion at work, something big apparently, and decided the whole family needed a luxury vacation to celebrate. He planned this incredible trip to an all-inclusive resort in the Caribbean, like those places you see in magazines with perfect beaches and crystal clear water. Everyone was super excited. My mom wouldn't stop talking about all the new clothes she was going to buy for the trip. The twins were planning all the adventure activities they were going to do, and Derek was super proud, bragging about how much everything cost. I was excited too, honestly, because I thought maybe a family vacation could make things better, that maybe in a different environment we could all get along better. The day before the trip, a Thursday, my mom and I were in the car, coming back from buying some last things she needed for the trip. I was in the passenger seat. I think we were talking about something. I don't remember exactly what. When suddenly, another car ran a stop sign and hit us on the driver's side. Everything happened so fast. Like 1 second we were fine, and the next there was glass everywhere. The airbag exploded. I was screaming. My mom was screaming too. The impact wasn't that strong, thank God, but it was enough for my left arm to hit the door really hard and for my head to bounce forward and then back. The ambulance arrived in like 15 minutes, although it felt like hours, and they took us both to the hospital. My mom was fine, just some bruises, and she was in shock. But I was worse. Turns out I had broken my arm. They needed to put a cast on me. And I also had a concussion. The doctors told me I needed to stay for observation for at least 24 hours, maybe more, and that afterwards I was going to need complete rest for several days. No screens, no physical activity, basically just rest. I was in the hospital bed with my arm in a cast and a horrible headache, and all I could think was that, well, at least my mom was going to be with me. She was going to take care of me. We were going to spend time together while I recovered. But then Derek arrived at the hospital, and the first thing he said, wasn't asking how I was or if it hurt a lot, but that this was going to ruin the vacation. Literally, those were his words, that I had ruined the whole family's vacation. My mom tried to calm him down, told him that obviously we had to cancel the trip, that I needed someone to take care of me. And here comes the part I still can't believe happened. Derek said no, that they weren't going to cancel the vacation because of this, that they'd spent thousands of dollars and weren't going to lose all that money, that I was already 15 years old, that I was old enough to take care of myself, that they could leave me at home with money for delivery, and I'd be fine. My mom at first said no, that was ridiculous, but Derek kept insisting and insisting, saying it was only a week, that I wasn't a little kid, that they needed this vacation after all the work stress. I was listening to them argue about this while I was there in the hospital bed, with my broken arm and my head feeling like it was going to explode. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Were they seriously considering leaving me alone after a car accident? Was my mom seriously considering this? I told them I didn't want to stay alone, that I was scared, that it hurt a lot, and I needed help. But Derek told me to stop being so dramatic, that millions of teenagers stay home alone all the time, and they're fine. In the end, my mom gave in. My mom, who was supposed to protect me and take care of me, gave in to what Derek wanted. They told me they were going to leave the next day as planned, that a nurse was going to come check that I was okay, that they were leaving me the neighbor's number in case I needed something urgent. I tried to reason with my mom when Derek wasn't there. I begged her not to leave me alone, but she just told me I had to be strong, that Derek had worked very hard for this vacation, and it would be selfish of me to ruin it for them, that it was only a week, and afterwards I'd be fine. They discharged me from the hospital the next day in the morning, basically pushed me out because they needed the bed. My mom took me home, made me something to eat, put the pain pills on my nightstand with instructions on when to take them, and told me to behave and that she'd call me when she could. Then she, Derek, and the twins left for the airport. They left me alone in that huge house with a broken arm and a concussion to go on vacation to the Caribbean. The first few hours after they left were the worst of my life. I'm not exaggerating. I tried to be strong, tried to convince myself I'd be okay. But the pain was horrible, and I felt so alone and scared. I couldn't even make myself proper food with only one arm. I couldn't shower properly. I had to take the pills, but they made me feel dizzy. I called my mom like 3 times, but she didn't answer. She probably had her phone on airplane mode for the flight or something. At some point in the afternoon, I started crying. Like really crying. Those ugly cries where you can't breathe properly. And then I thought of my dad. My dad, who had always been there for me, who called me every day, who asked how I was, who genuinely cared about me. And I realized I needed to talk to him. I needed to tell him what was happening, even if that meant causing problems. I called him, and as soon as I heard his voice, I started crying again. I told him everything, the accident, the hospital, that my mom and Derek had left me alone to go on vacation. He was silent for a moment, and then asked me where exactly I was. If I was at home? I told him yes, and he told me not to move, that he was going to come get me, that he was going to drive the 3 hours from his city and he'd be there as fast as possible. My dad arrived in like 2.5 hours. He must have driven like crazy. When he opened the door and saw me there on the couch with my arm in a cast and probably looking like I'd been crying for hours, his expression completely changed. He hugged me very carefully not to hurt me and told me everything was going to be okay, that he was there now and he wasn't going to let anyone hurt me again. I cried in his arms for like another 20 minutes at least. He packed some of my things, the essentials, clothes, my toothbrush, my laptop, some books, and took me back to his house. During the drive, he asked me more details about what it had been like living with Derek, if this was normal, if they always treated me like this. And that's when I told him everything. Absolutely everything. About the last 1.5 years. About how Derek treated me. About the twins bullying. About how my mom always took their side. About how I felt invisible in my own house. My dad listened in silence, but I could see he was furious. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. When we got to his house, he set me up in the guest room, which basically became my room at that moment. He made me soup, made sure I took my medicine, and stayed with me until I fell asleep. The next day he called my mom, and when I say he called her, I mean he called her. He yelled at her like I'd never heard him yell before. He told her how dare she leave her 5-year-old daughter alone after an accident. What kind of mother was she? That if something had happened to me, he was going to make sure she and Derek were held responsible. My mom tried to defend herself, said I was fine, that it was only a week, but my dad didn't let her finish. When he told her I was going to stay with him until she decided what was more important, her daughter or her perfect new husband. But he didn't stop there. My dad, who's a lawyer by the way, called Child Protective Services and reported what had happened. He made a complete report about the abandonment, about the conditions I'd been living in, about everything. When my mom found out, she called me furious, screaming at me about how dare I tell my dad that I was going to get her in trouble with the authorities, that Derek was furious, that I'd ruined everything. She asked me, no. She demanded that when CPS called me, I tell them it had all been a misunderstanding, that she'd left someone taking care of me, that I basically lied to protect her and Derek. And that's when I truly realized that my mom had made her choice. She'd chosen Derek over me, her perfect family image over my well-being, her vacation over my safety. And I don't know. Something in me just broke at that moment. I told her no, that I wasn't going to lie, that I was going to tell the truth about what happened because what she did was wrong, and she told me I was going to regret it, that I was being an ungrateful child. And then she hung up. When the social worker from CPS came to talk to me, I told her everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Not just about the accident and being abandoned, but about the whole last 1.5 years, about Derek and his sons, about how I felt in that house. The social worker took notes of everything, asked me many questions, talked to my dad, reviewed the medical reports from the hospital. A few days later, they told us my mom was going to receive an official warning and had to take mandatory parenting classes, and that Derek was also being investigated for his behavior toward me. My mom sent me like 1,000 messages after that, alternating between being furious at me for ruining her life and trying to make me feel guilty, saying I didn't understand how hard it was for her. that Derek was her husband and she had to support him, that I was being selfish. I stopped responding after a while. My dad told me I didn't have to talk to her if I didn't want to, that he was going to handle everything legally, and my only job was to focus on healing, physically and emotionally. Like 3 months have passed since then. I mean, it's been like 4 months total now. Started the legal process to get full custody of me. And my mom surprisingly didn't fight much, probably because she knows that with the CPS report and everything else, she didn't have much of a chance of winning. I officially moved in with my dad, changed schools, started over in a place where nobody knew my story and where I could just be me. And honestly, it's been amazing. My dad is, I don't know, the best. He makes me breakfast every morning, helps me with homework, even though sometimes he doesn't understand the new ways of teaching math, and we have to look up tutorials on YouTube together, makes sure I take my vitamins, asks me how my day was every day, and really listens when I tell him. I have my own room that we decorated together. I met some girls at school who are really cool and became my friends, and for the first time in a long time, I feel safe and loved. Last week was my birthday. I finally turned 16, and my dad threw me a surprise party. Nothing super fancy or elaborate, just invited my new friends, ordered pizza, watched movies, did karaoke. But it was perfect because it was genuine, because the people who were there really wanted to be there, because there was nobody criticizing me or making me feel like I wasn't enough. My dad gave me a bracelet with our initials, his and mine, and a card that said I was the bravest person he knew and that he was proud of me. I cried, obviously. My mom sent me a message that day, happy birthday with a cake emoji. That was it. No call, no gift, just a 2-word message. Part of me felt sad about that. I'm not going to lie, because she's still my mom and a part of me still loves her and wishes things were different. But another part of me, the stronger part, realized it's okay. That I don't need her validation or her love if it comes with conditions. That I deserve better than that. I haven't really talked to her since I moved in with my dad. She sends occasional messages, like asking how I am or telling me we should talk. But she's never really apologized. Never admitted what she did was wrong. And honestly, I don't know if she ever will. Derek and her are still together, of course. And from what I understand from the few messages we exchange, she continues with her influencer life and her perfect Instagram family, probably never mentioning she has a daughter who doesn't live with her anymore. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right decision, if I should have endured a little longer, waited until I turned 18 and could leave on my own without causing so much drama. But then I remember how I felt in that house, how I felt invisible and unwanted and constantly judged, and I realize, yes, I definitely made the right decision. My dad tells me I was very brave for speaking up, for asking for help, for not lying to protect people who didn't protect me. I started therapy like 2 months ago. My dad thought it would be good for me to process everything that happened, and it's helped. Honestly, my therapist has helped me understand that none of what happened was my fault, that the adults in my life made horrible decisions and I'm not responsible for that. She's also helped me work on my self-esteem, because after so long hearing that I wasn't enough, that I needed to change, that I was a burden, you start to believe it a little. You know what I mean? I'm still healing, physically and emotionally. My arm is fine now. They took the cast off like 2.5 months ago, and it barely hurts anymore. The nightmares about the accident have become less frequent. The bad days where I miss my mom, or rather miss the idea of what a mom should be, those days still happen, but they're becoming less. And the good days, where I wake up in my room at my dad's house and feel genuinely happy and safe, those days are more and more. Yesterday, my dad and I were cooking together, him trying to teach me how to make his famous lasagna, though it's definitely not as famous as he thinks. And he asked me if I was happy here, if I felt at home. I told him yes, that this was my home now, that with him was where I belonged. And he hugged me and told me I'd always have a place with him, that I'd never have to doubt that. And in that moment, I realized, yes, I'm okay. I'm going to be okay, because I'm finally where I'm supposed to be.